Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. It's Dr. Contrast here. There's a little bit of a brief intro before we begin here. This could be a very expansive program today, and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm going to bore you to death, but this is a project that was probably the length of duration is about 2 years worth of time for product development work. It came out of California, primarily the California market, but the actual primary office I was working through was in Phoenix, Arizona. Interesting progress. It was called the Microblend system. And just a brief overview before we go into some of the sketch development here, the history of this whole program. What it really meant was that this group of entrepreneurs in California had the idea to kind of revolutionize the paint shop industry by, instead of going in and mixing up color and so forth, and then a lot of time to go through the process to get the right color to mix, they came up with an idea of getting into an overhead system to clean up all their inventory in stores and get into a much more cybernetic approach to paint development, which became a module design along with some storage systems along the way that I'll show you through the process here to get things cleaned up in a store and be much more direct and without a lot of fanfare too. One of the features, one of the most important features, and I think just groundbreaking back then when they put it all together, was the ability to sit in your living room and take a photograph of what you had in your home, no matter what place it was, basement, upper level, bathroom, living rooms, Florida rooms, and begin to look at that photograph and send it to this network center and begin to punch in certain things that they wanted to do as far as color goes to mix the paint. Very revolutionary in a sense, and as I said, a very demanding long-term program. And I spent a lot of time doing the design work with this team. And while I'm at it, I was approached by a marketing firm here in Columbus who had a contact with this group out in California. And they contacted me about the possibility of me coming in, being the designer of the lead individual to put the design program together. So after a series of meetings, we sat down and looked at the overall content of what we're going to be getting into. And I decided this would be a very unique program to be involved in because it involves so many different moving parts from start to finish or concept to completion. Very unique in sense. So let me go through the lineup here and start from the very beginning, some of the very early concept sketches that were done, and take you through the process and show you the final, hopefully, final addendum or rendering piece we did within the marketing system. I think it's still alive today. I'm not sure what the lifespan of this group was, Microblend. But when it came on board, it was just a revolutionary as all get out, and a very unique system. From a product point of view, again, a very elaborate set of touch controls, the mixing systems, television systems, and the like, containing systems, storage systems, overhead movement. I mean, incredible plethora of things to deal with. But nonetheless, it came out to be a very good program to deal with here. So let me start here, go through a whole bunch of sketches. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to spend a lot of time to explaining them. But it all began here. I just brought out a Sharpie pen, fine line pen, and just started doing some thumbnail sketches based on what their conversation was. And really the conversation from the very beginning of the program boiled down to 3 basic units. It was a very, almost like a kiosk module with the actual pumping system was involved in this upper housing into a serving tray or platform you can slide back and forth. This would be adjustable. It would take different bucket sizes or paint sizes. And then these 2 modules on the end were storage systems for different mixtures that they needed, for example, in a pinch to get things taken care of. The blending systems are entirely different. This did not include some of the blending systems they were dealing with early on, which were very streamlined in pipe systems. You'll see some of the sketches as we go later on here through the process. So let me just kind of hopefully go through these guys. We'll kind of leave them over here. This is page 1. You'll notice very much a monitor system, very tuned in TV screens on each side, which this did not have. It had little plates. Facilities for that, but it wasn't nearly as expansive as these 2 monitors on the right and left wing. Little thumbnail sketches along the way. Another way of trussing maybe the upper piece, which really didn't work out well because it didn't support the load. So there was one, another page here as we go down the line there. Again, simple sized elevations, a little bit of perspective, but more of a circle in the round program with monitors above, and off it went from that point of view. So then the 3rd series of sketches were sent. Now this is where we get into some of the mixing systems. This was directly feed to an upper overhead storage area. These piping systems would bring in some of the paint fluids that would be mixed inside this module and delivered here. And then again, these are the storage containers for removal and so forth to replace some of the pieces that were involved. will be brought back into the piping system to kind of feed the kiosk that makes the paint. Little elevation sketch here, maybe a little more organic form to work with, and again, a little perspective of what that would look like in gesture. Another page here, getting back to more of the straightforward TV screen system, very mechanical looking. The mixing system in the center, 2 monitors on each side. And again, another variation up on top where this board across the upper can be used as a shield. And again, notice the beginning of much more storage containers. The paint mixing platform here, and then the TV monitor screen or the mixing system, piping system inside the main basic module. Again, further studies, a little more compact in this case. I'm going to move it out of the way just a bit here. This was a little more compact in terms of what the theme might look like. Again, a side elevation, and again, a perspective study, much more compact. And I think they were talking about at some point in time when we were going through this process that they had some limited restricted areas that some of the stores are looking to get into. And again, eventually the plan was to go from small retail shops and a large box retailer like a Walmart series or a Costco of some of that nature, Giant Eagle and like. So all that was part of the plan some years ago to get that done. Again, more compact, a little less obtrusive in terms of being expansive as a design theme. And again, now back to that same process again, where they actually had wings here. Again, much more compact. A single wing here with a monitoring system, pumping system, and a little station below. Dual system here. And again, maybe a fractured system, a little bit of a plan view break where you can actually view it from right and left. You see that once, and I think in this case, one of the conversations came up was on one side, we can show the illustration of what room has to be painted, and then this would be the mixing system process touch screen control, where they actually punch in the dial numbers to get that paint system that they wanted revealed. So again, additional thumbnail sketches. By the way, too, just as a quick interjection here, these are very elaborate meetings in terms of these sketches were done week after week after week, looking at particular things. Well, let's try this. Well, let's try this. It's much more a cause and effect approach. But again, it slowly but surely began to boil it down to a simple theme, and it worked out pretty nicely in the end. And you'll see as we wrap up the program today what the final product looked like. Very revolutionary and very well received on the retail side of life as well. Again, another very compact approach to it. A single monitor up on top, mixing system below, paint tray and storage each side here. Some of the systems here are showing how this begin to operate. This would be the lean system. This would be the table area where the thing would mount, the bucket would mount, and then again, storage modules on the end for some of the paint containers that they needed to replenish or remove. Back to this piping system again up on top, feed system, the very same module series. A little bit more width involved, a little bit larger in scale, but still the same theme was all there. And by the way, throughout the conversation, all these sketches that you're seeing now were all generated as part of what if things from their vision, the three business partners. Their vision was something that's very electronic looking, very modular looking, and again, very almost kiosk-like. So that's why these sketches have a lot of similar characteristics to it, but a little bit of variations in theme from program to program. Little final studies here, getting a little softer look here in terms of a little more animated. Not really like that direction. It was interesting to see how that was maybe one of the themes that they looked at as a possibility for this headpiece, where the action mixing system would be, or the pumping system would be. Then the last series, they're getting back into a lot more organic look. Again, there's this feed system coming into the unit itself, overhead piping, much more expansive. One large board up on top of the system. Let me move this down just a bit. There you are. And basic elevation here, sort of the side view, and again, the simple monitor up on top, and two touch screens each side, serving tray or delivery tray, and then the platform speaker. But the thing is interesting, the last thing we did was the last sketch was interesting. This is the one that kind of broke things through. This one really kind of put it all together. Let me turn this sideways a bit here, and let's see if we can do this. How this sketch began to really mirror what we were doing at the very beginning. Notice how all of a sudden we started getting more information about what the character might look like. You like the storage module, you like the paint tray, the mixing system up on top, the very large viewing monitor, and again, a little thumbnail study here about that platform might look like. But notice again, here are the things you started really focusing on, for example, a video screen, a CPU system, a barcode reader, a spectral system, labeling, more electronics, and a keyboard. more electronics, meaning much more touch control pieces along the way. And we went to that. Now, isn't it interesting? This is where we ended up. Look at the very first sketch we looked at. This is the one I prefer as far as character goes. Oh, move this over just a little bit so we can kind of see where they are. And then this one was the one that was picked up. This was a long series of sketches here to get to this program here, but the very last sketch came right back to this is our favorite preferred. That platform look was really helpful for them to kind of look at as far as the process of putting things together here. So let me move along here. This is the first pass of sketches. So as it began to develop a little bit more, let me move this out of the way. Let's get these up over here. As it moved along a little bit more, this is some of the more refinement sketches. I'll go through these very quickly. There's a lot of history here, and I don't want to bore you to death here. But now notice once that platform, let's get this back in here for a moment here. Once that platform was set, notice how the relationship started to take advantage of. Aha, that's the theme they like. What do we start addressing this thing and giving more of a formal look to it, or much more packaging look to it? So let me get these out of the way again. Pardon me. And then we'll just go through, I'm going to go through these very quickly, theme after theme after theme, just kind of focusing in and trying to find the right solution for what this system would look like. Here again, this eventually was eliminated. It's that feeding system from an overhead storage system that then I'll show you later when it got into the actual retail areas itself, that would feed the actual basic mixing module, touch screens on each side, and again, some of the storage modules in this table tray, or certain size gallon, 5-gallon buckets and the like when I began to mix the paint. So there's one little thumbnail sketch, a little bit of color added, where they actually had some of the primary colors feeding on an overhead view system and some of the canister modules and how that began to look. So we started to refine the sketch a little bit more, or the scene just a little bit more. There's a little study here, again, same process where these actually opened that up a little bit for an elevation. A little detail on that mixing system, the dispensing window, and how that might look in this form here. It's a little bit of perspective sketch, very, very thin and almost a wafer-like approach to the actual module that they liked. And again, twin monitors and then the mixing system coming in. So there we go for a little further refinement sketch. All of a sudden, it started to take on some of the character they liked. The mixing system, the table tray for convenience, touch control screens, the pumping system or the mixing tray in here, and again the platform for placing the buckets. And this would move up and down depending on was it 1 gallon or 5-gallon buckets, kind of put it all together. So let me move along quickly. Here's a lot of stuff to cover. And I said I don't want to be guilty of boring you to death, but this is a big, huge process. And in the middle of it all, and maybe about a month or two into the whole process, we started looking at, well, what do we do with the retail space? How do we display this thing? What kind of does it look like? This would give me some idea of what that mixing system would look like with all these primary colors above overhead and storage that you would see, but it's not as obtrusive in the store itself. And then all of a sudden notice that all these things are going to funnel into this mixing system, into the actual module itself. The rest of this sketch was just a basic overall character. When you walk into this new retail space, this is what it might look like. You've got the manufacturer, Microblend, you've got some information here, you've got maybe a touch control kiosk, and some spots in the area in the store. We actually punch in what you're looking for, whether you're going to do a bathroom, kitchen, etc., and it's all digitized. This, you could actually send, as I said earlier, this is where you'd send your photographs to look at, to begin to look at what you wanted to do with the color, and then you could dial that in and go from once you find what you're after here in the kiosk, go to the mixing system and have it delivered for you. So there we go. Let me move along here very quickly. Next sketch. Going back in, it's very quick little pencil sketches, but trying to refine the thing, maybe a more integrated look to it. And again, storage module here, a very large container full of modules to lift up, and all the modules will be inside that. A little bit of a viewing window here, same mixing tray, and a shelving below for storage and the like. So that's pencil sketches here. Move along. Some additional little theme, a little ballpoint pen sketch. They also wanted to include maybe a little crawling monitor, like a little robot that you can kind of move around the store with you and actually punch in information on the keyboard below, touch screen up on top, and then again, the actual unit itself. This would be stationary, this would be mobile. So again, a lot of different things involved in this project here. So let's go back here. And back to some little thumbnail sketches very quickly, looking at some of the detail work of the actual screening device and the actual primary module. Some little details again. It's a little robot thing that we were talking about earlier that would travel around. Touch screen, monitor up on top, touch screen, maybe a module system, TV control. And again, you could use this thing to kind of dial in what you wanted to, and go to the larger unit to kind of deliver the paint system. But again, integrated. This is the actual unit, the satellite module in line in position with the housing, the keyboard, flat screen, and the spectral and label maker. This is all attached to this, but this is the one that this piece on the right moves quite a bit. That's much more mobile. This would be the fixed system. And then this is a color module, color module with a color shelf unit and storage system below. And again, same, maybe storage below, a little bit of sliding. Notice where the bucket is in place. This thing would move up and down according to scale or size. And you get the deliverable here as it comes through the line. The next sketch here, same process. Maybe a little bit of a modem. In some cases, the stores would have maybe a separate unit here for like a PC system, a dialing system, module for control, and then also a movable keyboard and TV system up on top here. So this would be more of an install, like a big box system where you might not have room to put some of the elements together. So they wanted to separate that out as well. So let's move along here. And some ballpoint pen sketches of what this module would look like. It's a satellite module. Interesting little concept that would be a part of the whole process. But again, this would move around all up through the room or with you, or certain stations within the space to kind of work to solve the problem that you're looking for. Paint. There's another series of little modules, Gen 5. The traveling modules here, kind of interesting little thumbnail sketches, quick ballpoint pen sketches for the actual robot itself that would move the module itself. And then here it is in a different position here. The module side by side next to the actual mixing module. And again, that same process, storage, the touchscreen, keyboard, the label maker, and the pounding table. And then you put the lid back on it. So as you move on, once it's filled, you move it out, and you begin to pound it, put the lid back on, and secure itself. So I think you can see thus far a lot of things are going on in terms of what this project was really all about. Again, highly revolutionary, extremely complicated in terms of little touches of idiosyncrasies that had to be addressed. How do you manage it? How do you facilitate it? What are the systems involved? The electronics alone, the IT system was overwhelming. I'm afraid to think about how much it would cost to run this thing as far as what their expenditures were to get this thing up and running eventually. Again, some little studies here, and this goes back to the main overhead pod for the label maker, for example, what that might look like. Again, little thumbnail sketches. These are little thumbnail sketches, kind of isolate the piece of like the storage module that would sit next to the actual mixing module. So there's little sketches there that would kind of come together with it. And we go back up on top here. We roll over here again, still looking at maybe some very simple little form studies, stainless steel for the actual paint storage area there. Back to some cap studies for the actual mixing component up in for the primary module itself. Looking at different ways of treating that Windows system per deliverable, and some little detailed studies here about maybe little touch controls or card systems that will be punched into that for availability in mixing systems. Again, monitoring, looking at the glass basic shapes up on top. Again, some little thumbnail sketches. Coming back into the form itself, maybe a little bit more of a buttercup roll that comes out of the shape itself. Instead of being all glass, it's a little blister that you would see in the actual form itself. And again, a little more of a close in detail, some of the side pocket for availability, storage, and serviceability here. Storage module here, the primary mixing module here, and again, the actual pounding system table down below. So there we go, some additional notice how we're starting to get much more compact now and streamlined with the actual sketches themselves. So kind of a neat deal here as far as finally getting into some, again, a lot of height there. Notice again, this track with that front portion move up and down, and then take care of the fact that you have a different size mixing system to work with, from the quart up to the very gallon to 5 gallons. Elevation sketches, looking at the printing label, buried in the actual top of the hood itself, and the actual mixing module inside underneath that unit itself. So there we go here in front of my hands. A little more of it. Again, this is detailed studies of the label maker. Maybe it's up on top of the unit this time. And instead of being integrated into the window, it comes in, comes down, and here's the actual mixing window here. Elevation study shows you that. And the module houses this, the label maker. You punch all that information and the label will be made, and you put that on the can as you made for the store. And again, sorry for being rapid here with this thing. I just don't want to. There's so much involved in this, and so many sketches that were done. It was overwhelming. I mean, I just kept cranking on this thing. Great to work with, and I had no difficulty whatsoever. with the actual management themselves. They like the process where we're following some of their input, which I think is extremely critical. You can't go out there on your own on something as massive as this. It's an all new experience for me, so I was really good, very tuned into listening very carefully what the issues were and what they wanted to deliver, what the character overall was. And they did an excellent job of guiding me through the process. So again, little thumbnail sketches, really rapid little pieces. These are all part of the history of this thing now. Again, back to some studies with a label maker inside the actual mixing module. Really quick studies here, and this is a compatibility piece where you've got the actual monitor attached to the side of the actual piece itself, and this would pivot and move up and down. And again, here's the primary module, the actual pounding table itself, label maker below, and the drum system or the gallon system or 5-gallon can in position. It changed a little bit from here, but they still have the same basic overall character. They like this kiosk module, and the management liked this storage system here, but I'm not quite sure they were all sold in it. And you'll see that as we go down the line here in the actual solving of the problem. Again, another little family of forms here, the robot and the actual module itself gives you some idea of the scale of this thing as we begin to move through it and put the pieces together. Nothing changed much. We kept that same overall hood, much deeper now because of the mass of what had to take place behind this thing to make it function. And again, the labeling system in a weight station here. This is a little module, little robotic module that will move around with you as you go through the process. Let's see if that's one. There we are. Here's a little color study that was done for it. Just a real brief little color study, which is a compatibility of that guy. So and there's a little module next to it. So that goes there. Just a line study here to kind of put the pieces together. Handle system that would move up and down or be removed. So on. It can be removable. Little black and white concept sketch. The lid opens up, storage inside that. Again, the satellite module itself on the other side. And again, the main mixing module, it's right in center. Here's another one, color study. This would be more of a retail space, like a large box system here, where you actually can move this over just a bit. We have a large box system where you actually put this in place on a post. You'd have a traveling little laptop that would fold and would be concealed, and then power system underneath. The label maker here, and again, the mixing system and the basic module. This again was a restrictive area that we were working at. If you've got a very small space, like an 8x8 square in a retail space or a large big box area, this would help to facilitate that look. So let me put that in place here and we'll move along, get this back in the center. There we are. Again, same little line study here based on it. A little more of an elaboration of how this thing might pivot and move around this laptop system with the same, again, refined space concept here. Let me move this again just a moment. Let's get these up and running out of the way. There we are. These guys going, there we are. No more space to work with. So again, as you can see, there were so many things going back and forth in terms of conversation with the management. Let's try this, let's try that. So every sketch had a function behind it. Nothing here was wasted as far as I'm concerned. It took this much time and effort to really kind of finally tune in and focus on what the actual concept was and how they wanted to deliver the whole goods. So here we are. I move along very quickly. Another little detail of that same system. Gen 5, revised direction to clearly integrate the label maker into the upper. And again, the same mobile system over here. Second shelf on a customer counter sit here and over here. You could put maybe information on that counter shelf in that restricted space to work with. You know, a little module again with the satellite off the one side and the actual bucket system. You know, a little detail here, much more the same thing. We got a couple of little color studies here. Here we are there. Again, that restricted area. And again, notice in-store layout, for example, keyboard, spectre, label makers, all these things. Now we move a certain thing from underneath here up on top of the same mounting post to kind of keep things integrated and all together. Notice a bit of a change in the character of the actual pumping stations or the actual modules that would inject the paint in the actual bucket. We go down another little color study, same process, restricted area. Back to line drawing again. Some of these are probably redundant. Pardon me here. Elevation study real quickly. Again, this mechanical elevation of that little module area here. And this would be actually, this is a detail what that pulsing system would look like with that arm on it. You can kind of pull it out. And a very flexible side elevation of pivot arm for a user position. So overall plan view, for example, if it went into a tightened area, for example, very simple area. The shaker would be over here. The actual color would be here. There's the actual mixing module. There's the pulse that we kind of referred to. That was over in this sketch here. This is a plan view look at what this might look like in store. So that's part of that process. So move along here. Now this is interesting. Now we go from this generation opened up the door. After all is said and done, this sketch was finally part of the process as we're going through this from day to day and month to month. The individuals in the marketing team in this group were going out there trying to sell it to the big box operators like Costco, Whole Foods, etc. Costco, I think Walmart, that box size here. So this became a breakthrough to get things moving. And then once we got this, when they saw this, and this is an interesting concept for paint use. We can save a lot of space in inventory. It's all condensed, very, very, very focused, very contemporary looking piece of hardware. Let's take a look at this thing. So from this sketch, all of a sudden, Costco became the first primary manufacturer or big box to look at this thing. Again, down below, again, here are some of the pallets, for example. There's the actual module back in through here. Actual paint storage up on another shelf. This is actually a graphic across Costco's header to tell you where you were. So this series of sketches now moves from the actual module itself into the big box retailing system, how they wanted to treat this thing. So I'm going to go very quickly here. We're going to go through this thing. So here we are. Here's one. There's a line study, a little bit black and white study, what that might look like. Here's another variation of that, again, the mixing system up on top, the actual module down below, some of the paint chip colors I could work with, and some of the visuals things we could deal with. In-store presentation for Costco. Black and white study there. Pencil sketch. Again, there's another little variation where we've got an actual paint system here. This is one of those restricted areas we were talking about where the actual paint module here was in place. Again, for Costco. These are very quick sketches, so I'm going to move along here very rapidly. Here's another approach here. Maybe it's not paint next to a photo on our photo piece. There's the actual mixing module, the actual store itself, and the touch screen. You actually punch in all your information to get the information together for what you want to mix as far as paint is concerned. And then here's a little system inside the actual paint bucket, the actual mixing system. Not quite the same design. We just want to restrict and get an idea of what this might look like, a little corner module in Costco. Another approach. This is more of the situation where the storage modules for the paint would be up on top, and all this would be storage underneath here. So again, a line drawing. Let me get this out of the way here, guys. Move along here. Same variation. The paint system again next to a photo paste. A little bit more of a detail in the paste, or the actually touch controls and the modules themselves inside that mixing system. Another variation on theme, for example, you pick a color process out here, touch it all in, and you go around the corner to where the actual module or the actual station is itself. A little pencil detail sketch of what that might look like. Now, I'm moving very quickly here because I don't want to really bore you. There's no little variation on theme here, what that might look like. This is more of like a holding station or a benchmark station where you come in and put all the decisions together, and then all that information is sent to the actual module in the store itself, and it begins to mix the paint. Another series of storage systems, how it's all put together. Paint below that location. A little detail sketch here. Another detail sketch for, there's so much work being done at Costco. They're looking at this. We had to work within restrictions with the storage towers where they've got these blocked areas in, for example, so much space to work with. We didn't have a lot of freestanding area here. It was all closed inside this actual form itself in the store. A little detail sketch here. Another variation on approach to this mixing station. Final composition will change to show in human scale. Plan view detail at different location. So it will follow. Again, a little bit different information kiosk here with all the materials for Costco and Microblend kind of work into the system. Another overhead shot of a bigger area, for example. Paint storage up above, retail down below, the mixing systems, two of them here, and then the front counter would be like a mixing area here, paint selections and supplies. So there's a little bit more of an expansive look at how this thing might work in a larger space within Costco's system. And we come down the line here once again, and here's a this is the actual line drawing itself, and there's the actual color study as it came together here. So there's the actual color study based on the pencil sketch. what that might look like. So again, all the modules underneath, a lot of retail up front. And while I'm at it here, this is interesting too. I think it might be worthwhile to say this at this time, that this became not only a product design piece, but it moved into an architectural interior space study and also an architectural exterior space study. If we have time, I'll show you how it all ended up both indoors and outdoors. It was a really expansive program. Incredible amount of things learned, great stuff to work with. I really enjoyed it. Tremendous program. So again, product into interior space and then into exterior space and architecture. So let's move along here. Another little study, carbon copy of that guy. There's some digital pieces where we actually put together the actual display area in the actual store. One area that might look like, within Costco. Now again, back to some little pencil sketches on flavor of the day, for example, information board for color systems, touchscreens, information from residential, and a touchscreen up front here for the paint chip display. And how that will all work. Paint chip display, line drawing. Again, retail space and interior sketch here. This is a series of line drawings that were started with this interior sketch to just kind of lay down what it might look like, for example, if you went to a larger store format other than Costco. Let's say you had a freestanding or in a mall paint shop with this microblend system placed in it, what would you then do with it? So there's a little pencil sketch. Again, the paint chip display area, some of the modules here for looking at the paint system itself. This would be a little delivery piece. There'd be 2 or 3 of these pieces along the way that can kind of get it all put together for you. So there's a little line study. There's another variation on that same process, like a retail space, a freestanding kiosk, the actual paint chip display area. Again, looking at the retail, how to present this thing in not so much a big box area, but a small retail space. There's another little variation and sketch of the board itself. Some idea of the paint to say, and a texture panel behind it. This could be possibly a Sears process, maybe something in a Sears or a large department store, Macy's, etc. That can all fit as well. Now we move into some things that they were looking at as far as headers for the actual store at Costco. Back to that large space. They wanted something like a header piece that would display the pumping system and how that would magically display some of the paints. So the magic of Microblend, we put together a series of concept sketches here of what that might look like as a header above in the Costco, for example, across the top of the store area here. Variation of the same theme. Variation of the same theme. Actually, these would all be different colors, kind of forming a rainbow across the top of that header in the store themselves. And again, some black and white studies here. And again, just laying down shapes and forms. This is an actual digital study about what that might look like. Space down below, storage area, and in the header above, maybe a little detailed photograph of a kitchen area or something you're dealing with, and the actual process itself. And then the header up on top. This is variation 1. Again, over here, variation 2, same basic theme, the magic of Microblend, with a different little image behind here, and the actual store below is the actual fresh choice painting process, and the actual module will be located underneath this very nice, simple storage area down below. This would be a Home Depot piece, for example. It could be interesting, in addition to Costco. Costco, Home Depot, any large manufacturer like that, interesting. Lowe's, all these people really interested in getting this piece put together for a little elevation study and plan view study of what that might look like. And again, Microblend, Costco plan, back to Costco. Again, this one. Again, same Costco, different little paint booth display. This would be the actual module area here and all the elements around it. Notice again, up on top, this would be the actual storage modules where all the paint would be held and then delivered back down into the actual paint process itself. Paint your way, a very interesting theme. And again, it's all predicated on getting away from going into a store, looking at chips, and then having to wait for it to be mixed. It was all done digitally ahead of time, and a very revolutionary approach to solving this problem of getting into these spaces that were just so unique in terms of simplifying the actual painting process and getting rid of a massive amount of inventory. For example, into a paint store, you've got all these elements coming bucket after bucket after bucket, and this would be a very simplified approach to getting that piece put together for that purpose. Very interesting. So that kind of takes care of that family of forms. So let me kind of move these out of the way a little bit, put these back in order, and we'll move into the next phase here, which moved into some. I think I've got some additional pieces here. with the, move that out of the way. Here's another stack here. Some additional line drawing studies that you've seen earlier. Some of the actual display areas itself and the big box areas here. So I'll kind of move through these very quickly. There's one there. Another little line drawing about what that paint system might look like as far as retail space is concerned. Again, some of the actual module areas here, for example, this would be a Costco setup where you have the actual modules up on top. See if I get that thing set up there just a bit. There we go. The variation on theme, for example, 1, 2, and 3 different views. Again, notice where the storage would be, the actual module system inside the area. This would be the retail counter space here to work with. Again, it's a little black and white here, very strong study. That looks like there's another variation on theme here. So much work to be done as far as, again, notice I said earlier, not only was a product design form, it was also an interior space study and also an exterior space, which I'll show you here as we wrap it up at the close of the day here. And that guy, another module series, it's a color system down below before you got to the actual paint station in Costco. These are the actual structural beams that was all put together here. Another little variation on theme. Mixing system. Little color study based on what that might be, a very simplified approach with the actual mixing pieces up on top. Color design center and the actual module system inside the store itself with some engine turning plating inside either a Costco or some sort of a Home Depot, some area here, or Lowe's, actually paint system, and again, to put it all pieced together. Now notice again, you see this, I would consider this as an interior design study because now you're no longer talking about the actual module that mixes the paint, but you're now dealing with an actual interior study at a large retailer to kind of get the thing done. Here's another variation of a little color sketch on what that might look like. The actual paint system itself, some of the actual pieces in the inventory above here, some of the storage systems for Costco. And you would use this system here to pick out the colors and then move back into another retail spot, maybe around the corner or somewhere down the line to kind of pick up your actual paint itself. You can actually program all this ahead of time, have the machine take care of it, and then pick it up as you begin to depart the store. Another variation color here, a little paint, again, paint display system. This is all excess of what might be available in the Costco. This has nothing to do here with the actual Costco or Microblend system. This space was given to us as an area to kind of explore and put together graphics for within the actual store itself. So there we are there. Now let's go back. There's some of the, now let's go back to, this is not interesting. Now we go back to back to the product itself. This is now a series of sketches that we're slowly but surely closing in on the actual concept itself. Notice again, same basic module, same feeding system, the dual systems up on top, the displays, the actual pounding table, and then the storage modules for paint systems on the wings, right and left. Again, an indication of what that might look like in human scale. So here we are, back to square one again after all that investigation of concept sketch into the big box areas, some interior studies of what that might look like at Costco or some of the big box areas that we're looking at installing this material or this piece of hardware into. Then right back to the design refinement. I'm going to try and wrap it up here as best I can with some of the final design sketches that we're looking at for the actual finished module itself. So there's a line study, number one, of it. And there's another line study looking at it with an overhead piece, actual module behind that hidden, and the actual lean of that mixing module. And again, a little touch control piece on the end, very simple, and then some storage modules right and left of that pounding table, and some storage underneath there with power units underneath there. Another variation of the same thing, just very simple line drawing studies here. Now let's get back to this. And then again, phase two. Another variation in theme is to go back to some of the earlier sketches we did. They kind of like this approach too, with these very large storage system, the actual mixing module, and this little robotic piece that went with it. I'm not sure if they actually ended up with that robotic piece as part of the final piece, but little by little we started to slowly move it. This was one of the things being looked at, but I don't think it really hit the same target as this piece here did, for example, with the dual modules on it. Or, again, this large table with modules on each side as opposed to an overhead mirror piece. It's kind of complicated. Let's go back on, and that was it. Now, I think the next one is the one that kind of hit all the bells and whistles. This is where it all started to turn into the actual final piece. Again, I'm going to move this out of the way here just a little bit. There we go, right there. So what we ended up with, for example, was this, where you had monitor to monitor, mixing system, storage containers, and a table here that you can actually put that's moved up and down. Actual gallon or 5-gallon bucket here, storage modules above and below. And again, very interesting approach. This is all solid. We have a service table here, a little service table here. What it might look like in elevation and given human scale. That's what that might look like. Now, from that sketch, I think we move into, now you ready? Here's the final study. All the elements and all the discovery put together. This is the one that finally hit all the bells and whistles. This is where we came together. There it is. So that theme, for example, this theme in line was really interesting. As far as we're concerned, the management loved that approach. We went to this, and just for comparison here, look at this. How really similar this is to right back to some of the earlier sketches we did. For example, look at that guy, black and white study, way back, the very beginning, almost the first week of concept sketches, into where we ended up after months of almost a 2-year plan of putting this thing together. Very ironically how it all came back to a very simple approach. And again, it was certainly worth the journey because there were so many pieces along the way. We couldn't really determine what would be the right approach, but we kept looking at certain, how much space we have. Is it a large space? Is it a small space? Is it freestanding? Is it a large store? Is it a small box area? Is it a resource area? Is it in a mall? All these pieces had to be addressed to get the final piece done. So there's the actual finished sketch itself right there. Interesting. That's the original color. And then these are just some color copies. I think the rest of these are color copies of the same approach. Yes, it is. So that wraps up the actual module itself. But last but not least, I want to just show you something. Pardon me as I move this along. Get these organized. Destroy the process here. Last but not least, it's along the journey, along the way, as we stated, some of the things that came along as a result of that process was this. Costco became the primary benefactor of this whole process. And then what I'm going to end up with is this. In addition to the actual having the final module done that we just looked at, Costco came back to the management and said, we're going to develop a freestanding store or area in our fuel stations, but we want to put a paint shop and we want to put this microblend piece in that area. So I'm going to pull these aside for a moment. Let's do this. And these are starting out some very just quick little thumbnail sketches based on what that paint shop might look like, given it this area off of and the Costco property. Again, the fuel station would be behind it. Actual entry into the actual paint store itself. And you get a drive-through, open it up, garage for storage for deliverables. Walk into the store, a very small little area on their site to put together this whole process of this microblend painting system. So that was the first sketch I put together. Here. And the second sketch was a little bit more expansion of that same thing. Just take a little larger look at what this might look like. Again, notice again, now we're moving from product design, which is the actual module, into some interior space work inside big box areas, and what that might look like. Now we're doing an architectural study, which went interior and architectural exterior. Just amazing how the whole thing began to expand as a result of this thing becoming much more receptive and much more a favorable piece to look at and to work with, and replacing some of the complicated paint systems they're dealing with presently. And I think it's still active today out on the West Coast. But anyway, so there's another little thumbnail sketch, page 2. And again, another little variation, different view in this thing, showing you a little more of the fuel station behind the actual module and the actual store itself. Very small, but enough compact enough to get the job done and begin to be a freestanding piece for paint mixing. And then here's another little variation on theme. I think this is almost the same one, just expanding a little bit more on the actual concept sketch itself. There's a little pencil study. And then last but not least, let's move into this. Get back to this guy. Goes together. And this became the actual final line drawing of the actual Costco piece itself. This was the fuel station setup. There's actually a little bit of a change in the actual format of the store itself. Oh, pardon me, let's move that up here just about right there. How's that? There's the actual line drawing for the exterior space at Costco. Again, this is all in Tucson or the West Coast, or it's California, Mexico, I think Oregon, and Arizona. So they had the fuel stations all set up, and then they wanted to put this little auxiliary building next to it. And this was the Costco piece for Microblend paste at Costco for mixing the paint system. So there's an actual line study here, and then the actual piece we'll wrap it up with here is this line drawing, and then there is a final illustration piece of this actual exterior piece. So again, as you can see, the expanse, for example, starting here, let me go back to this again, starting here with that, to get to the actual final module itself, which I kind of pull out here, up one side, the actual final illustration piece, which is right here. So once again, we have the actual model itself, and then again, the actual product itself. And without going back into some of the archives here, some of the actual interior sketches at Costco and some of the big box areas, and an architectural piece, exterior architectural piece to finish it all off and put it all to rest in terms of what the project was all about. So really thank you for your patience. It's an awful lot to go through here, but this was such a massive operation in terms of when it all started. It was a very theoretical, hypothetical approach to a revolutionary way to mix paint to get rid of a lot of retail clutter, and the process worked really, really well. I think it was about a 2-year project for me, extremely demanding in terms of going back and forth with sketches, facelift this, let's try this, have you looked at this, have you done that? It's a typical design process, but so much going on in terms of what the actual content was. But I think very worthwhile from the point of view of exploring what a whole new I was nice. My point would be this: I was so grateful to be part of an individual on the team to go into a groundbreaking approach of technology such as this, to put it into retail. Very, very unique. Quite privileged to be part of the process. And I will say this too, from step to step and sketch to sketch and phase to phase, there was a lot of great communication, no difficulties as far as operational pieces. Once the feedback came into me, we sent that information back out, very well received, refine this, try this, adjust that. A very, very, very timely piece of information from very, very tuned in managers who knew what their mission was and what they wanted to accomplish, which I think was just terrific. There was not, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? They knew exactly what they wanted to get to, and they were very direct in doing so in terms of putting together the process of the actual program itself. So very, very unique in that sense, and I hope you have a chance to look at this maybe later on. If you get some input and hopefully some inspiration out of this whole process about how, for me, wrapping it up here today, what I really was amazed at from start to finish was, again, the craft of industrial design, or being an industrial designer. And my background, as I said many times, came out of General Motors design staff, a 12 years career at design staff, designing automobiles. But at the same time, when I was going through school, I was really well trained in architecture, interior space, product design, and automobile design. And when you get in a marketplace like this, all of a sudden your skill set becomes very, very, and I will say this very carefully, so I don't want to slant the playing field here, but the skill set you begin to work hard at and achieve pays off greatly when you get into situations like this, because you're not just tuned into one discipline. You can do architecture, you can do interior space, you can do product design, you can do transportation design. And if you notice, my sketches include all of that, hopefully. And it gives the client a much greater feel for what they're after, especially when you go to marketing systems. All these sketches are taken out to marketing firms and big box retailers and management systems, and they were all very, very impressed, not with the sketch that I did, the sketches that I did, but the overall concept. So the field of industrial design is extremely critical from that point of view. And if you're interested, for example, in industrial design career, boy, I really encourage anyone who goes into that industry to be well versed in all the 4 disciplines that deal with it. And then again, even logo development, you got to get into logo work and research work. It's all part of the process. It pays off tremendously. So this has been quite a journey. I want to thank you for the time today, putting it all together, and hopefully this has been some insight to you. And if you have any commentary, please feel free to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. I'd love to hear from you about what you thought about this program. It's a very expansive process, but again, product related, from sketch, from concept to completion, how it all began to waterfall together. And then out of that, the outgrowth of this became an exterior process that we didn't even anticipate with Costco and some of the larger big box there is as we went through the process of putting it all together. So I really appreciate the time, gang. It's been a lot of fun for me. Just brought back a lot of memories of very expansive, great people to work with. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Product, again, interior, exterior, how it all works together for the benefit of those individuals you're working with. And as a result of this project, by the way, I've received a lot more work in terms of design work, so I was very grateful for that as well. So if you have any commentary, again, please drop me a note. If I can be of any help to you in terms of drawing or thinking systems, drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com, and I'll be more than happy to kind of work with you and help you all I can. And on that note too, I think we've said this often, but I get in a situation where some things will come up and I'll change gears. For example, last week it was laptop sketches. This is more of a real product piece. Last week was more conceptual sketch rendering pieces itself. But I'm getting a lot of feedback now from a lot of individuals around on the chat systems and some of the notes coming in about going into some very simple, basic pieces of information, for example, like perspective, light source, contour, volume, and maybe doing 5 or 10 minute little studies, move them up onto YouTube and see what you think. So all that's part of the plan to come. And next week we might do a totally different subject matter as well. So it's just been great fun, and I want to thank you if you've been a loyal customer or viewer. I cannot thank you enough for the time spent. I really greatly appreciate it. And again, please take a moment to visit my website at drcontrast.com. I think you'll find it to be very refreshing. We've got everything I do here, for example, on Twitch. When I complete it all, I just export this up to YouTube, and it's available there. I put some of these sketches on my Instagram account as well. And so it's been interesting with Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch, how it all kind of works together. And I've got some great feedback from them that as well too. So very thankful for all that coming together. Again, so much for that process. Today's whole stream was all about this whole idea, the product design process of Project Microblend. I hope you have a great day. I want to thank you again for the time spent and wish you all the very best. Look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. And okay, get from there. And hopefully, if you get a chance to tune in next week, always remember this. Never forget to dare to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day, and we'll see you next Wednesday, same time, around 2:30. Stay tuned. It'll be very interesting. Might be a whole different set of circumstances. We'll see what we can come up with here. But thank you so much. Take care, and all the very best. Bye-bye now.